everyone, it is Dani'i and welcome to this update video this morning. I hope you're doing great and we'll be looking at what is going on across the North Atlantic. So Tammy has now achieved post-tropical cyclone status. Nonetheless, it could still bring some tropical storm force winds to Bermuda this weekend. We'll be talking about that, and there's a lot going on across the Caribbean. For some of us, there has been a lot of heavy rainfall. Here in Jamaica, there has been some flooding in some eastern parishes as a result of all the recent heavy rains. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll also be talking about potential developments as we head into next week. So let's get straight into it. We're zooming into the vicinity of the Caribbean. First, looking at northern South America, we can see that for the Guyanas this morning, not a whole lot happening, but over in Venezuela and even just north of northwestern Venezuela near the ABC Islands, there's a lot of activity. So there could be some periods of those thunderstorms and a lot of heavy rainfall for the ABC Islands as we head through today. And then heading to Colombia, we're also seeing a bit of activity popping up, and then across the Lesser Antilles. So with a trough in the area, that is helping to enhance the rainfall activity. So areas such as Trinidad and Tobago, going to Grenada, and even going towards the Grenadines, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, we're seeing that there is some activity within the area. And let's head further up north here. We can see that things are a little bit drier, especially going up to the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands, even for Puerto Rico and sections of Hispaniola. But we see all this activity right now in the Caribbean. So there's a lot of rising air motion, and this can actually help in the formation of an area of low pressure, which may then develop once conditions are favorable. So all this increase in moisture, all this instability, it can help to result in the formation of an area of low pressure. So we'll definitely have to keep our eyes out. I mean, models are still consistent about something forming, so we'll definitely have to be on the watch for next week, especially over in the Western Caribbean. So I'll be taking you guys to what the models have to show in a moment, but we want to take a look at the rainfall activity expected through today. So we're looking at the Euro, and the more colorful this map becomes with these oranges, yellows, reds, burgundies, purples, a lot of heavy rainfall likely. So for portions of southern Belize, going to Guatemala, some spots in Mexico, Honduras, including the Bay Islands of Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, especially for Costa Rica, we're seeing some of those purple spots, and even down in Colombia as well. So there could be a lot of heavy rainfall, which triggers flooding across some areas, even some mudslides, landslides as well. Heading to portions of Venezuela, the ABC Islands, similar story, not as much rainfall expected for Guyana, but there could still be some periods of heavy downpours here and there. For Suriname, we're not seeing where much is expected at all through today. Let's head up to the vicinity of Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, and then through most of the Lesser Antilles, really, there could be some periods of heavy rainfall as we head through today. That chance may be a bit lower for various islands of the Virgin Islands, but overall there could still be some activity. Similar story as we head to Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and even for Jamaica, especially in eastern parishes, which have already been facing some flooding where some roads were even impassable. There has been some landslides here as well. So these are very hazardous conditions with all this additional rainfall that is just going to be making things a lot worse. So guys, if you're going out, please exercise caution. Please do not take any unnecessary risks. When you see flooded roadways, flooded bridges, do not attempt to cross. Turn around, don't drown. So that is what is expected for Jamaica, going to the Cayman Islands, Cuba, up into the Bahamas, and even for the Turks and Caicos Islands in the Keys of Florida. There may be some showers passing through, but overall, a whole lot is not expected through today. And so now we're taking a look at this dry air map. So when we see more of those shades of reds and oranges, even going to those pinks, that's a lot of dry air. So a lot of dry air in portions of the Gulf, even extended into sections of the Northern Caribbean and off the east coast of the U.S. And some of that dry air is even wrapping into the circulation of Tammy. So this is helping it to dissipate out there. It's going to be loitering around for some time. But generally for the Caribbean, especially going to the South Caribbean, that dry air intrusion is not a big deal right now. And then we're looking at the wind shear map. So the shear is also increasing for Tammy. So again, a combination of all these factors which inhibit development are helping Tammy to lose its tropical cyclone characteristics, and then will will eventually allow the system to dissipate. Those strong upper level winds, that strong shear is marked by those red lines, where we see a lot of those red lines indicate unfavorable shear. In order to see some strengthening or development, we're looking more for those green lines, which indicates that things are a bit relaxed in the upper levels of the atmosphere, where the wind shear isn't a big deal. And that is the case right now for portions of the Caribbean, especially the Western Caribbean. But this is something that changes regularly. So let's wait and see what eventually happens, guys. But now we're looking at the latest for Tammy, and this is the last advisory issued from the National Hurricane Center. So the maximum sustained winds, 85 miles per hour, and Tammy is moving up to the north at 12 miles per hour. So as I mentioned before, now that the system is actually a post-tropical cyclone, we can see that the wind field is quite expansive right now. So it has expanded, and overall this track might be very confusing, but this is the track here, a bit toward the west, to turn up to the north, and then off to the east. That is what the National Hurricane Center is expecting. So with the tropical storm force wind field, there may be some tropical storm force winds being felt in Bermuda, also those rough seas. So if you're in Bermuda, you want to be on the watch for that. And so guys, now we're going on to take a look at some model data. Let's first look at the ensembles from Euro and then the GFS. So we're kickstarting with Euro, and this goes out to Tuesday, the 31st of the month, the final day of the month. And take a look at this. There isn't a whole lot of agreement, but still a decent amount of members suggesting that there will be something forming in the South Caribbean and then making its way up to the north, potentially as a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm, moving over Jamaica, going very close to the Cayman Islands, Cuba, and eventually we know that the Bahamas would want to keep watch, maybe even Florida, for a potential system. So Euro members are suggesting that we will see something try to form. And by the way, the ICON model, which we'll go on to in a moment, has been showing that we will see something forming in the South Caribbean, maybe a tropical depression or storm, and making its way up north. ICON has been very consistent. It's been one of the most consistent models I've seen in terms of that potential development. Headed to our GFS now, we can see that GFS is showing hints of something as well. Here we're seeing that some of these members with these models are kind of in agreement in terms of that potential system forming and making its way up north. And we know that the waters are very warm. That's going to be a huge boost once other conditions are conducive to allow for strengthening or development to take place. And then as I showed you guys earlier, there's a lot of moisture right now, all that rise in air motion in the Caribbean. So that will be a boost as well for whatever tries to form in the South Caribbean and make its way up to the north. And so now let's go ahead and take a look at the ICON run. So this is the latest this morning, and here we can see that as we're going to be heading into next week, this is as we go out into next Monday, there is that low pressure area making its way up to the north. We see that it is not a very strong system, 1,004 millibar low pressure area, maybe a tropical depression, potentially a tropical storm, making its way over parts of Jamaica, going to eastern Cuba, and then into the vicinity of the Bahamas. So as I said, ICON has been very consistent about this general track of the system for a bit now. And going on to the GFS run, so we saw the ensembles, but what about the run? Showing something very crazy here. So this is as we head into the latter of next week. So a week out from now, just over a week out from now, November 3rd, we see that tropical storm forming in the Eastern Caribbean, making its way toward the west, moving just south of Jamaica as a major hurricane. We see a pressure of 942 millibars, and then it is showing its strength in even more the Northwest Caribbean near the Cayman Islands as a Cat 5, moving over Cuba, weakening a bit because of course there would be that land interaction, and then crossing into the vicinity of the Bahamas, and eventually with that frontal system coming down and an increase in shear in dry air, that would induce further weakening and eventual dissipation with it. So there we're seeing that the GFS run is now going back to that major hurricane expectation, but it is important to note that sometimes GFS is bullish. Not saying this is impossible. In some cases with some of these systems as well, they're not expected to be anything much at first, but then they explosively intensify So we'll definitely have to wait and see, guys. But the main concern for me is the fact that the waters are so very warm, not only at the surface but far beneath the surface. There is a lot of stored energy right now just waiting to fuel whatever tries to form. Remember, we've not really had anything tap into the anomalously warm waters of the Caribbean this hurricane season, aside from Idalia and Franklin. And Brett made his way in, but it really didn't do much. It actually weakened because of all that shear. So there was nothing major in the Caribbean to help take away some of that energy and result in a bit of upwelling, which is when those cooler waters replace that lost heat content. So we'll definitely have to wait and see, guys. Very interesting week is up ahead, but I'm here to keep you posted every step of the way. So that is what I wanted to share with you in this morning update. And eventually, by the way, I'm expecting that the National Hurricane Center will soon mark an area. So let's see if that's going to happen in the 8 a.m. advisory, or the outlook rather, this morning, or between now and the weekend. So let's wait and see for that. But I really think that will happen, keeping with the trends, the ensembles, and the fact that conditions are generally favorable right now, where we could see development. And the next name to be used for the season is Vince. So I believe that by next week, Vince will form. Let's see if Whitney will follow soon after. So that is pretty much it for now, guys. And I hope you found this video to be quite informative. However, if you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I'll respond once I can. And remember to always be weatherwise.